fill us in on what the hell is up with your backdrop, where you are, what you're doing, in case anyone missed last week's episode and some of my streams, which I mentioned it as well.
Well, I'm currently in my pajamas. I am currently jet lagged. I have just had a workout and a shower, and I have landed in Thailand not much more than about 4 hours ago. So this is what I call commitment to the cause. So I jumped on a flight at 9:30 from Heathrow, 11 hours straight there. I actually had a touch. For the first time in my life, I had an entire row of seats on the plane.
Did they let you lie down? I was going to ask you this. Did they let you lie down horizontally across it?
Not only did they let me lie down, or
mate.
not mention anything about lying down, I created a bed. I created an incubator, so much so that every single person that walked past, because I was the last row as well, so a lot of people had to see me when they were going to the toilet. People were just staring at me for hours out of envy and jealousy. I'd created such a cool little cocoon of comfort that this woman in front of me was just staring at me for about 2 hours. It was actually pretty jarring. But first time ever, I got 3 seats, which I was buzzing about. So yeah, flipped all the armchairs up, got a triple pillow on one side, laid a blanket as the first layer up over all the chairs, and then another blanket. So I had like 2-3 layers on top of that as well. So it was ultimate comfort. So that was pretty good. Got to Thailand, 11 hours, pretty smooth flight, and then thankfully got picked up, and now I'm just at my cousin's place in Bangkok. So I will be, like we discussed before, I'll be working at ONE FC on Friday, and then I'll be bouncing around to different gyms all throughout the islands, Phuket, Koh Samui, Koh Tao, you name it. I'm not going to lie, my brain feels incredibly blank. I kept drawing for words earlier when I was creating content.
Normally you're good at that.
I just couldn't find any. I couldn't find any
It's that fatigue,
waffle,
man.
which is when I
It's
know
that
that I'm gone. But I'm still going from Saturday. So I watched a little bit, some of the fights, and then I didn't have much sleep. I thought, you know what? I won't have much sleep so I can tire myself out so I'll sleep on the plane. Didn't sleep on the plane. So now I'm in Thailand on a 7-hour difference, and I haven't really slept for 2 days, and I don't really know.
Hang on, so you made all of that bed, all of that genius planning just to not sleep anywhere?
Oh yeah, I wanted to be comfy. It wasn't just for
Yeah, it sounds about right.
I can't sleep on planes. I just can't. I drifted off for about no more than 30 minutes. But to be honest, I stacked up some good content to watch. I'm not a massive F1 fan. In fact, I don't like F1, but I got quite into the new season of Born to Drive or Born to Survive or whatever it's called. Yeah. Drive to Survive, that was it. Got quite into the Six Nations docu-series that they had on Netflix. Anything sport-related and documentary.
That's plain material. Plain watching material, that is.
It really was.
Just delve into something.
I chucked some of that on. Killed 11 hours pretty easily. Some decent plane food. I was actually pretty surprised by that. They even gave me a little side tangent, but why not? We're already here. I just caught my reflection in the mirror as well. My eyes are black and red. So I apologize for anyone seeing this in HD. Yeah, but they gave me a cheesecake. They had a chicken curry, which was delightful. But then the dessert was this cheesecake, which the only way I can describe it was the cheesecake bit was like an aero mousse that you get. You know the aero mousses?
Yeah, I got you.
And then it was sprinkled with Malteser balls on the top with a biscuit base. And I tell you what.
Interesting.
That was pretty nice. Pretty nice. I bought some of my own food, of course. Bought a fruit salad, bought some noodles, bought some chicken.
I'm assuming that cost you about a year's salary.
No. I bought it from home. All lovingly prepared for me. Best believe. So yeah, that's pretty much the last 48 hours of where I'm at. Like I said, I just recorded some bits of content. My brain's absolutely fried, to be perfectly honest. So it's been a bit of a slower day, but I'm going to put the blackout blinds across. I'm going to close my eyes after this call, and I'm just going to see what time it is when I wake up. And that's where I'm at.
I like that. Yeah, a lot more eventful than my week, I've got to say, on my last couple of days. The fights were very eventful, though. I'll say that. Quite a surprising fight night. But the first thing I just wanted to get off my chest was that we got a lot of flack for the clip we posted on our Instagram page about about banning heavyweight main events, and the context of that was lost because I said fight night heavyweight main events. That was what we were saying, not the elite level. We don't want Tom Aspinall not headlining. We weren't saying that, but we got a lot of hate for what we said because we didn't like the fact that Rosenstrike was headlining against Gaziv. And I will die on this hill that Saturday night only proved our point completely because that was a bore fest on what was actually a pretty fun fight night card as it goes. You know, even if it was in the Apex, I think overall the card was fun, but that was a heavyweight main event stinker, exactly as we said it was going to be. So I have to say, I feel a little bit vindicated. Is that the right word to use? I feel like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are, for anyone listening that doesn't have any context, we said essentially the other week that why are we still having unranked heavyweights as the main events on fight night cards in the Apex when we have contenders in lower weight classes? It got absolutely roasted online.
I think in fairness, I do think it got taken a little bit the wrong way, like lost in translation a little bit, if you will.
I don't think
really
so.
care.
I think people just heard it wrong. Someone commented, "These clowns are trying to cancel the heavyweight division." Not what I said.
Not at all.
Not what I said whatsoever. Someone commented, "You're saying all of this with a Tom Aspinall poster behind you," which did
I
make
thought
me
that was
laugh,
quite funny.
But also my rebuttal to that would be, how many rounds did that go? Point proven. And there was about 100 comments on there just absolutely gunning for us. But the weird thing about that was that I just changed platform and went onto Twitter or X, and everyone was echoing the same sentiment. So I don't know where all of these people were when that post went live.
Is Instagram is your answer, mate?
There was 20,000 people that didn't quite agree with me, and or either of us. We got absolutely roasted. Mate. It was pretty funny, to be honest. I quite enjoyed the comments.
It was fun. Yeah,
but
I mean, it was an all right main event. It was okay.
Yeah.
Rosenstrike, actually, to his credit, you might call it boring, but he fought quite a good game plan. Sitting behind the jab, Gaziv just looked a little bit of a step below. You know, there's a lot of hype going around him for some reason in the build-up, which I never really understood. And the first thing he did was smash his head into the cage. So I think that was a bit of a premonition for what was to come. But there was a lot of good fights on the prelims and the rest of the main card. I mean, Oliveira versus, was it Supaj was his name? That flying knee knockout already cemented as probably, you know, a knockout of the year contender, if not already the winner. That was unbelievable. Nah, come on now. You're saying that's not in the conversation? That was absurd.
We'll forget about it in October.
Nah. I said this on the stream. It reminds me, it gives me the same vibes as Bahamondes' spinning wheel kick from last year or the year before. That was in that conversation for the whole of the year, and it wasn't forgotten. And that was an Apex fight night off the top of my head, I believe. I think same sort of energy.
I just think when it's this early in the year, well, it's not that early, but it's fairly early. When it's this early in the year and the name isn't the biggest, I'm not saying it will get forgotten completely.
I get what you're
but
saying.
There'll be some crazy things happen towards the back end of the year with bigger consequences and more on the line. And then usually recency bias just plays into that a little bit. But don't get me wrong, it was absolutely incredible. None more so than Steven Erceg, who I've been very high on for a long period of time.
Beautiful.
That was brilliant. And then obviously we had Makayev, who, to be honest, when you actually put in context the fact that he was very, very ill, not only leading up to it, he had 4 staph infections, of which he was on antibiotics too. So that was just eating him alive, essentially. And then on actual fight night, he was throwing up all morning.
I did not need that picture on my timeline. I can't lie.
Nope.
I don't know if you saw it. I
did. You know what it reminded me of?
I was just eating my food and I just saw that picture of his vomit in the toilet. I was like, dude, why?
It sort of reminded me of when you're at school or you're trying to get a day off, and for the first time in a long time, you've actually thrown up because you're actually ill and you're not faking it. So much so that you think, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to send it to people because this is proof. And it was like he was trying to send it to his mum to get a day off school. But the circumstances were slightly different, but very impressive. Because what is actually kind of strange about that is, I think I mentioned it last week. I can't remember if I did, but I won't go into it too much. But the event that I went and worked at, where I knew multiple people on the card, one of my friends was competing and he got violently ill. And he was ill a couple of weeks prior to that, but he sort of cleared up and he felt fine. And then he rocked up to the event. He was fighting at 7 and he threw up at 2. And I was thinking, it's just a bit of nerves. And then he threw up again and again and again. And he threw up constantly.
It's weird, isn't it? It feels like it happens
from
so
2
much.
p.m. until 7. And he had to pull out of his fight and he was absolutely gutted. But my point being was he could not even stand and throw a 1-2. And I'm not saying he was necessarily in that shape, but even if he was a 10th of the way there, super, super impressive. So I think Makhayev's on his way for a title shot. Definitely.
Agreed.
I think, to be honest, we can now gloss over this weekend because we've got a heavy hitting card this weekend. And I would go as far to say, give me your thoughts on this, the best main card I've ever witnessed.
Oh,
how'd you feel about that?
Are you coming out with that? That's that jet lag talking, man. You're not speaking. you're not thinking right. Nah, it's okay.
For a long time.
I say it's okay. It's very good. That's a lie. It's a very good card.
Okay.
I can't lie. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, you might be right. In recent memory, obviously this is recency bias talking, but it is damn good. It's the only thing. My only criticism of it, I feel like you've just got some of the guys in there who are just a little bit over the hill and being fed upwards a little bit, sort of fed to the hungry up-and-comers, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, Gilbert Burns, this might be a little bit harsh, but he's 37 years of age. And for me, that fight, I'm very heavily leaning towards Jack Della Maddalena purely on an age thing. And you could argue the same thing with Michael Venom Page. I just wish we had him in the UFC a couple of years ago. I said this last week. He's 36, I believe. Bit past it now. Hasn't fought the highest level of competition. And it just feels like he's down tools at this point. And it's a fun matchup either way. But I just wish we got the same matchups just maybe earlier in their careers, because then you had the stakes are much higher, really. But apart from that, like objectively, in terms of name value, it's very good. I am being a little bit harsh. I think it's a good main event, which the closer that we get to Saturday night, I think it's a lot closer than people are giving it credit for. Originally, when this fight got billed, I said Sean O'Malley was going to absolutely walk over him. And I still do think he will probably finish him. But there's that little bit of doubt creeping in. And I feel like that happens with every big pay-per-view. You start to doubt your picks and your decisions and second-guessing. But I'm looking forward to it. I think Marlon Vera's got a good chance. He just needs to get past that issue he has of starting slow. And that might be his downfall. I think that's where Sean could definitely catch him, because we know that Chito Vera is a very slow starter in the first 2 rounds, doesn't really get going because he's too busy making his reads.
I don't like that.
I don't know. What, from him or that prediction?
Not the prediction, just the reads thing. I don't like that much.
No, I don't. I mean, it's not. Yeah, of course I don't like it. It's a weakness. But
no, I mean, I don't love the phrase. I don't love putting it down to that. Getting his reads.
Obviously, it's a bit more multifaceted than that. But I don't know why. Is it? It's strange, isn't it? Because it's quite a repeat thing. I mean, the most egregious one was against Corey Sandhagen. Took about 2 rounds to even get into that fight.
In his defense, to be honest, it didn't look too out of character, the performance. The grappling looked very out of character because he looked like a fish out of water, and he actually has decent jiu-jitsu, and he's got a pretty nasty guard, at least with his elbows. And offensively, he'll usually show arm bars and triangles off his back. But more so than that, just urgency to get back to his feet, if not cause damage. So it was weird that he was just sort of so passive. But in his defense, this is casting your mind back quite a long way, and this is a little nugget of context, but he was actually meant to fight a week or 2 before that. And I just think he peaked too early, which can be a case of when people get their fights bumped back, especially for big fights like that. And it can cause very, very flat performances. And I think that is probably the best way to describe it, because although it wasn't super out of character, we've never really seen him look that. Not to take away anything from Corey Sandhagen, I believe he's one of the best in the world, if not one of the most skilled, especially in the bantamweight division. But I think that could definitely be something to it. It's just, you say about finishing Chito Vera, I don't know if he can finish him in truth. And I don't think that he's going to... The thing with Sean is he never hunts the finish if it isn't there. He always is looking for it, but he doesn't go looking too hard. And what I mean by that is he won't go and try and find something if someone isn't giving it to him. And I'm saying that in a very ambiguous manner. What I mean is usually his opponents are giving him opportunities. And when they do, that's when he capitalizes. Aljamain Sterling, the most noticeable of recent. But typically when he has opponents that, you go back, I know there wasn't much of a fight there. Pedro Munoz. Pedro Munoz didn't really come forward that much. He wasn't throwing an awful lot. He wasn't overextended. He was very well balanced.
I had him
he
winning
was very
that first round.
well calculated. Yeah, I think he won it on most people's scorecards. My point isn't looking into that too much. Not to mention he did check a lot of those leg kicks, Sean O'Malley. My point's not looking into it too much. But the thing with Chito Vera is he's never usually overextending. He's never usually overcommitted. He brings his feet along with him into the pocket. He shells up with a high guard. He sort of marches you down and he just picks you off with 1 or 2 shots. And when he lands very heavy. He doesn't give those opportunities like Aljamain Sterling gave, for example, or even a Merab Dvalishvili will definitely give you those opportunities. Chito's much less that guy. And I think when there's a lot of discourse online at the moment about this potentially being a boring fight, I think that's why people are thinking that, is because Sean takes what he's given. He treads a fine line, but he takes what he's given more so than not. And Chito doesn't usually give off too much. So can I see a world in where he can't cut off the foot movement of Sean O'Malley and he's just sort of chasing him for 5 rounds, and Sean's using his teeps and using his longer shots and his jabs off of both stances and just sort of pop-shotting him from range, beating up the body a little bit because of the high guard? Yeah, I can see it going like that, to be perfectly honest. I really can. And the last thing I have to mention as well, the last time they fought was in the Apex, which is 40% smaller cage. Now, for someone like Sean,
good point, actually.
For someone like Sean, the cage is a massive factor because movement is such a big part of his game. The way he jukes, the way he goes off of both stances, the way he laterally moves. When he's given space to operate, he's almost impossible to corner. And we've never really seen Chito get people against the cage and sort of trap them in with good footwork in the pocket and then start landing his shots. He usually is chasing a little bit. So, yeah, I think he's just going to be a step behind. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I could see that. I do. I was very concerned about the reach and length difference. That's the big factor when you're fighting a guy like Sean O'Malley, because his frame and sort of the way he fights is so unorthodox for the bantamweight division. So I do think Chito is going to struggle to really crack that puzzle. And if you go back and look at their first fight, as you said, the cage was a lot smaller, and that is a factor. But I had Sean O'Malley winning that fight up until his injury, and that's not to take away from Chito Vera's sort of ability. I think he deserved to win that fight based on checking the leg kick, which led to the nerve ending. If I'm not mistaken, that's how it went down. I do think it's a closer fight, though, as I've been going up. And the odds are starting to reflect that. I believe the odds have shrunken down as well. I mean, Chito's a plus 180 now, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'm still pretty set on Sean O'Malley, though. It's a fun one. But I think looking at the co-main, that is, for me, the people's main event. And I'm sure you're going to agree with me here. And it's the same story. As this fight gets closer and closer, I really can't decide. I've been torn on it so much. Originally, you go with your brain thinking age is going to be the factor. Benoit Saint-Denis is going to walk over Dustin Poirier, who's had a long and weathered career in the lightweight division. And it might just be the Frenchman's time. But I feel like Dustin might be able to put him away. And I don't know if that's a crazy take or not. I mean, you can feed into my delusions or not. Please let me know, because I'm still torn on it.
Honestly, I think it's one of them fights that you could sit and listen to 100 predictions and anyone could be right and anyone could be wrong. I just don't think we've got enough evidence to, number one, know how elite Benoit Saint-Denis is. I know he's got elite skills, but we've never seen it tested. That's just objective. And also, if we remove emotion from the Dustin Poirier career, this man is getting towards the back end of his career. He's coming off a knockout loss. He's been through hell and back more than once in the octagon, been through hundreds of wars, and now he's facing the god of war in a 5-rounder
Very nice.
that has unbelievable conditioning, unbelievable heart, will to win, strategy, IQ, phenomenal grappling, and his Muay Thai is very effective and it's always improving. And he's always seeking out the highest level of training to round out his game. So when I break it down and I think, how does this look? I think, can Dustin cause him problems on the feet? Yeah, 100%. I think he can do that to anyone. In truth, anyone in the world. However, I think that Dustin Poirier struggles when he faces someone that can mix up the arts in regards to the striking and the grappling. And I think that we're going to see Benoit Saint Denis be somewhat cautious, but I think we're going to see him blast the arms from range with his body kicks from that power back leg side, like he did against Thiago Moises. Take a little pop, take a little sting out of Dustin Poirier, what he does best. And then I think he's going to try and mix in the grappling. And I think when he does that, I think he's just going to be slightly quicker to the next position. I think he's going to be slightly stronger. I think he's going to be slightly more athletic. And I think he's going to get a 4th-round rear naked choke.
Wow. Wait, hang on, 4th round?
Yeah.
There's only 3 rounds, is there not? Is it 5-rounder? Oh, okay. I'm not sure. Right? I'm not sure if this is... Oh, no, this is actually a good bit of trivia for you. I was doing some research for my big video that I'm planning, which we can talk about later. But I saw the record. Do you know what the first non-round, non-main event... Sorry, 5-round, non-title, non-main event fight was? This is a nice bit of trivia for you.
Is it
I'll
Nate
give you a little
Diaz?
hint. Yeah? That's what you got, one half of it.
Go on, what's the hint?
I was going to say, it's not as far back as you'd think.
Yeah, it's Nate Diaz, and I actually don't know the opponent. Who's the opponent?
Leon Edwards. UFC, I believe it was UFC 263.
Leon Edwards.
Could be wrong there. Something like that, around there. But yeah, that was a little bit of trivia for you. But that's an interesting one. Now it's 5 rounds. That might change my perspective a little bit. But weirdly, every time I envision this fight playing out in my head, the only thing I can see is Dustin Poirier TKOing him against the fence with a standing stoppage. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's
that's
just
not crazy.
I don't think
I
don't think it's a crazy outcome. But every time I envision it, that's how I see it going. I think Benoit, when he fought Dos Santos, he struggled to recover. And obviously that fight should have been stopped a long time before. One of the worst refereeing performances we've ever seen. But I think when you look at, the way that fight played out, he got caught with a shot and he just couldn't come back. And I worry that if Dustin Poirier can catch him with a right hand or something, he's got a good chin and he won't go down, but he will stay in there and just struggle to really get back into that fight. And I could see Dustin Poirier really TKO him against the fence. That's how I see it playing out. But it's so hard.
I think
so hard to call.
I think that's fair. But what I would maybe play devil's advocate on that. But yeah, there's definitely not crazy to suggest that whatsoever. And it's definitely important to note, by the way, that one of the most insane statistics is Dustin Poirier has never lost 2 fights in a row in the UFC.
Pretty damn incredible. And when you take into account his longevity and how long and how many fights he's had.
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous. That honestly is one of the craziest stats when you consider.
I'll counter that though, just quickly. I mean, what did we say only 2 weeks ago? Time's undefeated. You can't beat time. It doesn't matter what happens. It will come for you and you will decline. There's nothing you can do. Volkanovski is living proof of that. So that record, I'm sure, will break. It's just a matter of when rather than if. And I worry it could be on Saturday night, but I'm gonna pick with Dustin Poirier. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna go with a round two TKO against the fence. That's how I'm seeing it.
The thing I was gonna say to that is you have to bear in mind that was on 7 days' notice, upper weight class on his UFC debut against a very good competitor. So
very true.
I think there were more positives to take from that than negatives. He didn't get stopped. And when you watch the fight back, as much of an egregious late stoppage or non-existent stoppage as it was.
Yeah, non-existent rather.
it's because he kept fighting and he was actually landing and landing well. And you kind of forget that. But every now and again, in a flurry of 10 shots that he's eating to the chin, he's landing a big one. And it's just, I think he's just at a different point now where he's just evolving as a fighter. And I think 5 rounds, this is the ultimate litmus test. So I'm very excited for it. But
yeah, agreed.
Let's move on to the next one anyway. I'm going to go submission. You're going to go standing TKO. And you know what? I think 10 times out of 10, I think we're right. We're both right a couple of times, to be honest.
Yeah, you run that fight 10 times. Yeah, it's such a hard one to call. I mean, it's quite nice. It's rare we get a fight like this with such a big gap in the rankings. It does make for an interesting matchup. But realistically, they're just numbers. They are rankings are artificial numbers. It's a skill. At the end of the day, it's a skill set versus a skill set. One man versus another, and those, it doesn't matter when they step in there. They're gonna go for it and go to war. I can't wait.
Line don't hold up in
the people's main event. Yeah, I was gonna say. I didn't want to say. I thought it was a little bit suspect. I just didn't. I just moved on. But Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page.
Nothing.
Well, speaking of numbers that do matter, that is the age of Michael Venom Page, 36 years of age, as I said, versus Kevin Holland, and I think that is going to be the difference maker. I really do. I think there's a lot of hype surrounding MVP. As I said earlier, I just wish we saw him in the UFC a couple years earlier when he was really in his fighting prime, fighting upper level competition. And I think that's going to be the keys to victory for Kevin Holland, because stylistically on the feet, I actually think they're very well matched. They're both very good kickboxers, wide skill sets, varying abilities, and their grappling is both actually pretty good as well. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland purely for the age difference, but it's a tough one to call. Again, there's so many wild card fights in 299, and that's why I think there's so much hype around it. A lot of big tests for a lot of big fighters.
Yeah, there's actually no way of telling on this one. There is actually no way of telling, because not only have we never seen MVP in the UFC, not only is it his debut, obviously he's still highly, highly skilled, but like you said, it is worth noting that he's getting towards the end of his career, and that matters when you're a dynamic striker. But then again, let's look at Wonder Boy. I mean, age hasn't really slowed him down much with his striking capabilities. Yes, we've seen the holes in his grappling, but his striking hasn't necessarily slowed down. So there's nothing to say that it will as well. One thing I will say is every time I've stood next to MVP, the man is flipping huge. Huge. He's way bigger than me. Way bigger in height and just sort of width as well. And to think he's a welterweight is kind of insane. He's a, I don't even know what his actual official height is, but he's a tall one of them, whatever it is. But yeah, on the feet, it's an absolute, who the hell knows? Who the hell knows? They're both very creative. They're both eccentric. They're both fighters that like to express themselves within the cage. And I think stylistically, this is an incredible matchup. I think that Kevin Holland would actually have the advantage on the ground. I really do believe that. I don't think he's going to use it. I really don't. And I know MVP says, he will. I don't think that'll be the case. We know remember
how he fights.
Kevin Holland went pretty much all the distance with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson when he broke his arm in the first round, and then he stood him up from the ground. That's to Wonderboy. So I don't think he's going to be shooting for shots anytime soon, which is kind of a shame on his side, because he's not a million miles away from a title shot, to be perfectly honest, because he's such a big name and he's always floating around the top of the rankings. A couple of good wins and he would be in some really, really big fights. But I digress. It's almost impossible to predict this one. So much so that I couldn't even flip and give you a winner. I honestly have
got to pick one.
No idea.
Say one with chest.
I'd probably I'd obviously want MVP to win. I would love him to get a big win. As much as I love Kevin Holland, I'd like him to get a big win, maybe one more, and then you're looking at the title. It doesn't make much sense, but there's a storyline, there's a narrative, and there's two big names in the UK. So he's had some conversations with the UFC where those sort of things are warm, at least. So there's a lot riding on it. And you have to think, if Kevin Holland goes in there and just dispatches him, I hope that's not the case, it's sort of, what do we do with MVP now? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope he wins. I hope he
They'll push him
wins.
very quickly as well. If he wins, they will push him so quickly. They're going to be mindful of how old
Oh,
he is,
100%.
how little time he's got left. I give it, if he wins against Kevin Holland convincingly and in dominant fashion, I think they give him maybe 1 or 2 more fights for a title shot. And I don't think that's crazy to say. They will
Yeah,
push him very quickly.
I don't even think it'd be two, to be honest. I think with a name like Kevin Holland, and that's the thing with Kevin Holland, I've never gone into a fight watching him and been, oh yeah, dead cert on the other guy. Just because he's so talented. He can knock you out from anywhere. We've seen that against Jacare Souza, and that's upper weight class, where he's
Yeah.
fighting at 185 pounds, walking around at that weight, eating cheeseburgers and weigh-ins. We've seen how good his jiu-jitsu can be and how funky it can be. We've seen him with all different types of knockouts, even just the basic foundations of striking, straight rights down the pipe, Joaquin Buckley. So you can never, ever count him out. And he's never really been in a landslide of a fight that I can think, apart from the Hamzat Chimaev one, which has a lot of asterisks over it. I'm gonna lean towards Kevin Holland just because he's
So
been
much.
there and done it in the UFC. But obviously, I hope MVP takes the win on that.
And moving on, I mean, these could all be co-main events. They're that good. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena, a former opponent of Kevin Holland, I believe in his last fight it was for JDM. And he's just leveling up each time we see him. And again, it's the same story as I said with the MVP fight. The age factor is going to be so instrumental, I think. And that's been a big topic of conversation in the last few weeks with Alexander Volkanovski, the cursed number 35 being the drop-off point. Gilbert Burns is now 2 years past that limit. He's 37, which is a testament to his longevity. He's still the 4th ranked welterweight
True,
in the division. And he's been in the
true.
UFC for a long, long time, more than a lot of these guys combined. So you have to give him credit there, but you do wonder when the wheels are finally going to fall off. And I'm a big Gilbert Burns fan. I feel like he's missed the boat in terms of winning a title. Hanging around in the top 10 is definitely still a realm of possibility, though. So it is an interesting matchup. The odds are very close, actually. It's pretty much a pick 'em. I think JDM's a slight favorite, but for me, I think the youth is going to be the difference. I love JDM striking. I think they're both good strikers, but we've seen Gilbert Burns get a little bit chinny at times. Chimaev dropped him with a jab. Usman did the same. Obviously, very powerful punchers, but I worry that will be his Achilles heel. I think JDM might be able to catch him early and put him away. That's where I'm leaning towards a JDM win in some capacity. Probably by TKO. I think I'll go 3rd round.
It's got similar vibes to the Chimaev fight, this one. You've got very talented, undefeated fighter, undefeated in the UFC fighter, that is on a tear, has a lot of momentum, and they bump into a Gilbert Burns. And this is a Gilbert Burns that is coming off a nasty injury, let's not forget. A nasty shoulder injury, which are difficult to rehab, difficult to repair. Like you said, 37 years of age. The narrative's all there for this to be very, very difficult. But Gilbert Burns is just that guy, man. He's just that guy. He just drags you into places you don't really want to go. He gives you fights that you don't really want because you're going to go home and be sore for weeks. And he puts in the work. His training camps are always to a level where he goes into the fight in shape for 15 minutes and will fight a hard 15 minutes. And I love JDM. I've been high on him from the Contender Series. From his first fight in the Contender Series I watched live, I've been all aboard the hype train. And every performance, however he's looked, he wins. He just wins. He finds ways to win. And anyone that's seen him before just knows that he has some of the best boxing in the UFC, just pure boxing. The way that he rips to the body, the way that he adds to his combinations. Honestly, there's not a lot of fighters I enjoy watching more than Jack Della Maddalena. There really isn't. He's one of my favourites to watch. And he's a very chilled persona. I think Gilbert's going to give him a tough fight. I even think he's going to get him in some trouble. I don't think it will go to the ground. And if it does, I think Jack's good enough to negate anything to happen down there. I think he'll get back to his feet. But I do still feel like Gilbert will connect and get him in some hot water. But JDM, I feel like, will weather the storm and will just do enough to edge it out on the scorecards. That's what I think about that one.
Yeah, it's such a fun fight though. You know, the more we look at this card, the more of the statement you dropped right at the beginning of this sort of conversation, I'm starting to agree with. It
Mate, you
is
said
stacked.
okay. You said it was okay. I was
Yeah, no,
thinking,
I ate my words immediately. That was the wrong terminology to use. I'll put it that way. It's a very good card, I have to say. Petr Yan versus Song Yadong is going to be the one to open us up. Again, just a great striking matchup. It really is a striker's dream, this whole card. Pretty much
true.
fight for fight. I'm actually leaning towards Song Yadong for this one. I'm a big Song Yadong fan. I think he's one of the sort of most slept on guys in the game right now. Not just in the bantamweight division, but I'd say the
Really?
whole roster. He's fun. I like
Oh,
him a lot.
behave.
Ability for Billy, I think he's very
Behave.
good. And obviously, Corey Sandhagen did put a bit of a clinic on him not that long ago. But listen, I will ride or die with that man. I don't know what it is about him. I like him. Petr Yan's been on a skid, and I worry psychologically that might affect him. You know, the mental side of things, he's going to be eager to get back in the win column. He's going to be desperate for that win. I don't know. I feel like it's just a momentum thing. I think it's riding with Song, and I think he might capitalize on that. I actually think strike for strike, they're actually very well matched up. I think a lot of people are dismissing Song Yadong and really sort of writing it off and giving Petr Yan the sort of nod of approval, if you will. But I think it's a very close matchup. I think it's going to be stay on the feet the entire time. And I think Petr Yan is defensively sound enough. We know how good his defensive striking is that he probably won't get finished. He's got a very good chin as well. I don't know. I think Song Yadong might edge it out. Maybe it's just my gut feeling, but I won't be surprised either way because, again, close matchup. All of these are.
I think calling Song Yadong the most underrated fighter on the roster
Not the most,
is
one
a
of.
wild,
One of.
wild take.
I don't think it's wild. Not just in terms of ability, but I mean just as a fighter. And I don't know. He's entertaining. Shoot me.
I see people give him a lot of love constantly.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. You got to understand, we're in the sort of hardcore circle, if you will. We are dedicated fans of the sport. Most casuals won't have a clue who this guy is, and that's not crazy to say. They will know who Petr Yan is, but they will not know who Song Yadong is.
Most casuals won't know most fighters if they're not prominent, loud figures in the top 10.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm standing by my point, though. I'm standing by my point.
Song Yadong is very good. Song Yadong is very, very good. He's got all the skills. He's got all the team. He's got all the natural ability. He's still rough around the edges is not the right word to use because he's a very, very refined product. He's got nasty jiu-jitsu, obviously coming through Uriah Faber's team, so you always have to watch out with the guillotine. He's very, very explosive. He's got hard to take down and control, almost impossible to take down and control. And he's just a threat. If it's standing, he has real devastating knockout power. This is a close fight. And the thing is with this is because he's so young still, but yet so experienced. He has a ridiculous amount of professional MMA fights for someone so young. It's always difficult to know what he's actually going to look like because his gains can sometimes be exponential, whereas Petr Yan's are going to be quite gradual and a lot more sort of on a minute level. He might make some adaptations to his game, but Song Yadong could come out and look like a completely different fighter, and that could quite possibly happen. The only thing that I would say is I just think that Petr Yan has better in-fight adjustments than Song Yadong, and he's just slightly more refined on the feet than Song Yadong when it comes to footwork, when it comes to cage control, cutting people off, setting your shots up, just smaller details. I think Petr Yan's going to have the edge there. So if this does stay a 4-ounce boxing match, which I think it probably will, I would have to favour Petr Yan. The only thing I will say to that is, obviously, as we know now, everything is scored on damage. Now, can I see a world in where Petr Yan outlands him and probably looks like he's stolen a couple of rounds? Yes, but Song Yadong lands one or two big shots that have an impact and it sort of stays in the judge's mind. I can kind of see that, to be honest. I'm going to probably just edge it as Petr Yan, but it's not a confident pick. Like I said, it could really go either way, this one. But like you said as well, he's on a 3-fight skid. So he really needs this. He really, really needs this one because whatever you want to say, yes, he's fighting the best competition in the best weight class in MMA, but 4 fights in a row is 4 fights in a row, and that is a lot. by any
Yeah.
standard. So yeah, he really needs this one back. Really needs this one back, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we can brush through a couple ones on the prelims before we can just sort of get into our content creation lives over the last week. There's some really fun ones in there. Mateus Gamrot, RDA. I don't think we can just quickly touch on that. That's a matchup which I love, but I feel like RDA is getting sent to the dogs a little bit because Gamrot is fierce, I have to say, and I worry that is probably going to go the way of the Polish man. So it's a fun one though. Obviously, yeah, there's a sort of near heavyweight title eliminator between Curtis Blades and Jailton
touch on that
Almeida.
one quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
When I was in Abu Dhabi in the warm-up rooms, Mateusz Gamrot was there, and he was chatting to Brad because obviously they trained at the same gym, not together, but obviously their coaches, Mike Brown and whatnot, mutual friends. And I was thinking, why is he here? He's not on this card. But he was weighing in as the backup to the main event, which was Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. So he weighed in as the lightweight backup, made weight in Abu Dhabi, and has never been mentioned since. Never been mentioned since. And this is from the boss that says, oh no, Colby went and made weight for the welterweight title, so anyone that makes weight for the title weighs in as backup, they fight for the title next. Keep that same energy.
They kept it for Brandon Royval, I will say that, but not Gamrot apparently.
The flyweight division, mate, they're scraping the barrel for contenders to fight the title that haven't faced him already. So that's the thing, is that Mateusz Gamrot is sort of been kind of just glossed over, but
he
doesn't do much of a job of reminding us that he should be fighting for the title. So you know the game by now. You know the game.
It's very
true. That one's on him,
very
probably.
True. Yeah, and then there's also, obviously, as I said, Curtis Blades versus Jailton Almeida. You could argue that is, as I said, a heavyweight title eliminator. Where that fits into the picture with John Jones and Tom Aspinall, I do not know. But you could see the winner of that fighting Tom for the interim belt, perhaps. Not really what I'd want to see, but I think that's what the UFC could definitely do. It's a fun one because you've got two great wrestlers, which I can't remember the last time we've really seen that at heavyweight. Two elite level wrestlers at that weight division going against each other. It's a very interesting matchup. And I really don't know who to pick as a result of it. Because obviously, I'd say Curtis Blades definitely has that sort of size advantage and the experience. But Jailton is really on that sort of meteoric rise right now. It does feel like he has that sort of aura of invincibility around him. I only think a guy like Aspinall could take away. So I'm at the moment, I'm leaning towards Jailton, but such a hard one to call. And the odds suggest the same thing. It's a pick 'em.
This is a title eliminator. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've never seen him throw a punch.
Weird, isn't it?
We've never seen him throw a punch in the UFC. Ever. If you actually think about it, he's never thrown a punch.
I wonder what the stats are on that. Like actual significant strikes landed.
10 strikes. And
I'm gonna have a look.
Most of them will actually be ground strikes, and probably against Derek. I was going to say against Derek Lewis, but he didn't even throw any strikes against Derek Lewis on the floor. So the reason I say that is because Curtis Blades started falling in love with his hands after he knocked out, no hate, but Dorcas was...
Yeah. Not level, not there,
yeah. You know, is all I've got for that. So he fell in love with his hands a little bit, and then when he got trading with Pavlovich and thought, yeah, I'm the man. I've been knocking people out. I'm a heavyweight. I've got great wrestling. My boxing's getting better. I'm maturing in my career now. I fought the best of the best. This guy's not my level. And then boom, a few exchanges in. He's taken a kip. My point is,
putting it lightly,
his IQ is always somewhat questionable, and it's the mentality. The skill level's always been there. It's the mentality that's just the hindrance for Curtis Blades sometimes. So the reason I say that is I wonder, is this the fight where everything clicks and he says, you know what, I'm cementing my name as the next contender. I win this, I go fight for the belt again, and I start putting it all together? Or does he fumble the bag, for less of a better term. I feel like Jailton Almeida's not going to be able to grapple him because there's too much of a size discrepancy. I don't even think Jailton Almeida's a heavyweight. I think he's a light heavyweight. Small. I don't think he's big enough for the weight class. We're talking about even John Jones, Tom Aspinall, Cyril Gane. We're talking sort of north 250, 260 pounders. Tom Aspinall's cutting weight to get to 260.
Crazy.
None of those guys can make 205. Well, obviously John Jones did, but he couldn't anymore. Cyril Gane couldn't make 205. Tom Aspinall could not make 205, and neither could Curtis Blades. So I don't think he's going to be able to wrestle him. And we've never seen him throw a punch. So I actually don't flipping know what his hands are like. So I can only do it favour Curtis Blades in this by knockout.
Yeah. Knockout. Interesting. Yeah, to be fair, I could see that because of the size difference. I am leaning towards Almeida, as I said, purely on the grappling front, but the size difference is such a big factor. So again, it's so hard to call, and that's just a summary of this whole card, as I said. And there's some other fun ones on there. Honestly, I'll go with Jailton Almeida. I'll just go for the opposite pick to make it a bit more interesting, but could go either way. There's a couple more interesting fights on there, but to be honest, I think we should touch on some other stuff because obviously you got some cool things planned for Thailand. Over how long are you out there for now? Are we going to be?
I don't know, mate. Couple of months.
Couple of months. Yeah, I thought you were out there for a few weeks, mate. I was like, fucking hell. Fair enough. Well, you'll be out here enjoying the heat, and I'll be taking in the cold of London and the clouds. You know how it is.
But... A lot of people have actually asked me that, and I actually don't really know the answer. I'm definitely going to do a month, but then I've got a couple of weeks I'm going to do with a Muay Thai gym in Koh Samui.
Nice.
So I'm going to do a couple of weeks with them. I'm doing a week in Bangkok, obviously in the lead up to the ONE FC event this Friday. So that's a week there. And then, yeah, I'm just going to sort of play it by ear, really. I'm going to visit Bangtao. I've chatted to the guys there, like I mentioned the other day. So I'm going to do a few days there. The area around there is, it's not bad. It's just not, literally is nothing there. There's just nothing there. So, and it's not, I don't want to go out. I don't want to party or anything like that, but I just a couple of night markets and whatnot will do me, but there's not even that, so it is quite difficult to stay around there. And then I'm going to be going to AKA as well, so Mike Swick, UFC veteran, his old gym, doing some really, really incredible things actually out there at the moment in regards to AKA Thailand. The work they do on their socials is probably the best in the MMA space, bar none, really, in regards to their following and the activity and the things that they're putting out. So, yeah, got some fun days out planned. So it's just about going there prepared with a game plan of what I want to create. I can't do it today, but be a little bit inspired, come up with some good game plans.
Food fighters.
And yeah, and plenty of that. I'm going to be doing a couple of those a day, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to be going to a lot of food establishments. I'll be pairing that into the ONE FC trip as well, so I'll sort of make it somewhat of a full day to give the full ambience of Bangkok. So not only do you get the stadium, but you get the food, you get the fights, you get the vibe, the atmosphere. You know, I'm really going to try and
savor it,
encapsulate everything. Yeah, savor it. Yeah. Encapsulate it all. But how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the other week I've been chipping away at my big grand project, if you want to get a bit more, eccentric with it. But I'm working on my hour-long history of the UFC video, give or take. Currently in the process of chipping away at that while I write my weekly videos. I said the other week whether I gamble on taking a week or two off on working on the regular schedule to work on the big project, which I probably will do in a couple of weeks. But right now we're doing both at the same time, which is a sort of new foray for me. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's a different writing experience because you're going a bit more factual with it rather than storytelling, but there's a bit of both mixed in. But yeah, it's good fun. But on the personal side of things, I mentioned to you on Instagram that I finally got back into the gym, which is good. It makes me feel great, as I knew it would, and as you said it would only a couple months ago. But yeah, I went twice last week. I don't want to bore anyone too much because I know there's one thing I've realized is people who ramble about the gym to people who don't go to the gym, they do not care. So I won't go on about it too much. Yeah, I'll gloss through it. But yeah, I mean, we just went in with a mate or two, and we've just been going at it. Yeah, we went twice, going again tomorrow. Feeling good, trying to get to my long-term
need
goal.
to
We're going for like
specify
75.
what gym it is. That's quite an ambiguous term.
Yeah, weightlifting, to be fair, not for cardio. As much as I do need to improve on that, yeah, we're solely focused on getting heavier, getting stronger, and just getting fitter. And already taking good steps there. Already feeling a little bit better. You know, I mentioned before, I did when I was training in jiu-jitsu, I was dealing with a lot of stuff with nausea and vomiting and near passing out, and it's a medical thing I've been trying to have sorted out for a long time.
That was just
it's not
your
a case of being out of shape. Shut up.
I was gonna make a joke, but I just didn't.
Nah,
God, it was more serious. It was getting more serious.
No, honestly. But yeah, so that's something I've been trying to sort out for a long time, and they haven't been able to figure it out. But that affected me on my first time in the gym on last Sunday, so that was a bit disappointing. But on Tuesday, it was actually a lot better. So I was feeling good, and that was a nice sort of improvement. I wish I knew what causes it. In terms of weight, I'm trying to get to about 75 kg. That's about. I want to be like a lean, sort of pretty strong 75 kg. That's probably the goal. At the moment, we're obviously. I think I'm like 66 and a half, 67. So going to build towards that. Definitely achievable, but short term 70 kg, and then we'll go from there.
And in regards to the workouts, what are the goals? Not that it has to be anything too rigid. I'm just trying to. Well, are you trying to? Are you trying to just get heavier by consuming more calories and just doing a bit of lifting and just sort of seeing how it goes? Are you trying to do a more, I want to almost go down a bodybuilding approach where I'm looking to gain muscle and I'm not too bothered about getting particularly strong? Are you looking to do both? Are you looking to just go in and have fun?
Yeah. I'd say all three of those things. You know, I mean, I'm not too focused on diet in terms of like eating really healthy. I'm gonna sit and say I don't really have the discipline for that. I'm gonna obviously be mindful of what I eat, and I've always done that really. But again, just I still focus on the calories and everything, and just improve on every front, because I realized as soon as I got in there how much I missed exercise, because it's been a long time since, as I said to you, a while back, I really, really needed it. And I really do miss jiu-jitsu, and I will eventually get back into that once I'm able to sort all this thing out and I get these appointments done and have things cleared up and whatever the cause is and have that sorted, because I really want to get back on the mats more than anything. And the reason I say that in part is because I've got a friend who is actually competing in a charity MMA fight I think on my birthday, and in a couple of weeks, if that, like 11 days, 12 days, so just after my birthday. And the way he was talking about it, training and learning all these things, it just got me thinking about getting back on the mats and just cracking open all those puzzles again and just learning new things. And I really do miss it. Gets me annoyed actually when I think about it. Maybe a bit psychopathic, but I do miss the feeling of locking up a triangle and choking someone out. I do miss it a lot.
I think anyone that has done it previously or hasn't, I think everyone needs to get a hard push in whatever it is physically. You need that hard push. It's just a different level release of endorphins, and you can go long periods of time without doing it, and you almost subconsciously convince yourself that you don't need it, or you don't want it, or you don't yearn for it, and then you get it. You get that endorphin release once again, and then you realize this is transformative to my mindset, to my body, to my soul, and it really, really has a big impact. And it doesn't have to be some bro science, or I go in and do 2 hours in the gym, and it really, really doesn't. Just go in, and the reason I say that is because I've been at every end of the spectrum. I've been in the spectrum where I've trained twice a day and I've consumed a ridiculous amount of calories and was very avid on tracking everything and very, very specific on my workouts and all of these small details of training. And then I've been at the level where I've done nothing. And then, which was weird for me, very, very strange for me. And then I've been at the level, which I am now, where I just get in a good 15-minute push every day. Even before we came on this call, even though that, like I said, I'm jet lagged, I haven't slept, I haven't literally just come upstairs and set it all up. There's a little multi-gym thing next to the shower, and I just did some pull-ups, did some dips, did some crunches, just something. You realize that you just need to do something. I would say for you, the main sort of thing is, with the training, obviously you want to establish the the good habit first of just going. So just,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
wouldn't even set your ambitions any higher than just going twice a week for now, because there's no point in overcomplicating it. Outside of that, I would say just make sure you're getting a good enough protein intake, because that will hamper you. If you're not getting enough protein, you just don't have the building blocks. You don't have the
You just
foundations to
plateau.
build muscle. You just simply don't, and that's just biologically true. You can go to the gym and have really good workouts. You can get some good pumps in and whatnot, and break the muscle fibers down. If you don't give it the protein so that they can rebuild, you're just putting yourself in a deficit. So it's not as good as not going, but it's just, it makes sense. You may as well maximize the hard work that you've done, is how I always look at it. So just get a good amount of protein in. You won't need a lot. You'd probably need, how much do you weigh?
66 and a half.
Yeah, you wouldn't even need a
Yeah.
lot. You probably need about 70 grams
Nah.
of protein a day, something like that. That's not a lot. And then if you struggle, just get a little lean whey protein, just a scoop of, with some water, 100 calories, 25 grams of protein. It's easy.
That easy.
You just want to make it frictionless, but it's good that you got into the groove of it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been in years, so it was sort of a nice. This is a weird sort of reference. You seen Ratatouille?
Love
The
Ratatouille.
movie, yeah. You know the bit where the food critic at the end, and he eats the ratatouille, and he like has that big
Yeah,
flashback, and he
goes back.
turns into a kid. Yeah. That's what it was like when I came out of there, because it was just like I used, because as I said, I used to go quite a lot back when I was in school, in college or sixth form, same thing. I was going quite regularly then for a good 6 to 7 months, and it sort of brought back those feelings. Maybe that's a chemical thing in the brain, I don't know, but it was
For
nice,
sure.
and it was just made me realize what I was missing. So yeah, good to be back in it.
Nothing
I'm
feels
actually looking forward to it already, which is a good change.
Nothing feels better than when you get some new muscles as well. When you start getting some new muscles and your t-shirts start fitting a little bit more snug, and
Nah, I
you
wear baggy clothes
catch it.
anyway, mate. I don't like wearing tight
Yeah,
clothing. I don't care about
yeah,
that.
yeah. But if your muscles get bigger, then your clothes get more fit. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Even if you wear baggy clothes, you'll start filling them out a little bit more. That's my point. So you start catching your little reflection, and you start seeing a little. Oh, I've not really seen that tricep before. Oh, I can see a little delt for the first time. It gets
Yeah.
quite addictive. It really does get quite addictive, but it's a good addiction to
I
have.
think for me though,
And
just to round off on the main thing I'm doing it for is not, it's just for me. It's not for anyone else. Like a lot of people go in the gym to impress people or to, show off their physique and whatnot. I've never really thought about it like that. For me, it's just a personal thing. As I said, like in terms of I wear like loose fitted clothes anyway. I'm not trying to show off my physique. I don't care about that. It's just a preference thing.
you really took that to heart. I wasn't saying you're wearing
no. I know you're not. I know you're
super
not.
slim fitted top.
No. I'm just what I'm saying. Like it's just a general thing. I always cared about my physique and the way I look, but only just to me, and it's not to prove a point to anyone else. And I think that's a good mindset to have.
You want to look better naked.
Yeah, pretty much. That's it.
It's usually what it boils down to for most people. It's usually what it boils down to.
At the same time, I feel like a lot of
things.
people have. I think a lot of people have problems with their physique, or they feel like insecure about it. I've never really felt like that over the last few years. Anyway, it's just
That's good.
and it's half the time it's just a mental thing as much as a physical thing. I want to, it's probably more so, and I think a lot of people say that after a long time doing physical exercise and having these patterns of going to the gym, etc., or training, it becomes more a thing of improving the mental side of things rather than the physical, because that takes the secondary stage, if you will, and then the mental side is the spotlight. That's what's more important long term for me, anyway, for sure.
I would say 8 out of 10 people that go to the gym, let's say 4 times a week, 5 times a week on a consistent basis, and are quite into fitness, I would say 8 out of 10 of those people have body dysmorphia from just anecdotal experience and professional sort of experience. And what I've observed over nigh on the last decade, I'd probably say a good 8 out of 10. And usually the ones that look the best are usually the most insecure. And it will sound ridiculous because you'll look at them and think, they look ridiculous. How could you even get a better physique? And they'll be stressing because their left tricep is a millimeter out from their
It's
right.
like
And it just,
it's like
it's a,
YouTube views. It's never enough, innit? You know,
no, and it just always
chasing the pot of
perpetuates the
gold at the end of
issue.
the rainbow. Yeah,
It
exactly.
always does. And that really is a big thing. And I definitely got the same thing. Obviously, done weights for quite a long time, but more so than that with a Muay Thai training that I've been doing recently. I've just been doing a couple of sessions with my friend here and
I
there.
saw.
And I started off terrible, and then I did the next session and I was terrible, but not as terrible. And then I start realizing, I was like, oh, I like this. I like,
Yeah, it's the
just
bug, isn't
again,
it?
it's just
It's
a
the bug.
progression thing, right? It's just a progression, whether it's on the socials, whether it's physical, whether it's something like that in a sport. So when I get out here, obviously I want to try and do that quite a lot.
I think
I'll
with martial
document
arts, martial arts, the best thing about it is you're pretty much always going to suck. You know, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter who you are. You're not going to be good when you begin
For sure.
with. And there's always, I feel like in every martial art, I could be wrong, but mostly for jiu-jitsu in particular, there's at the start, and it's the same with gym and working out actually, there's always a rapid progression at the start. And that just gets you hooked because you learn so
Yeah.
much in a short amount of time. Those first 2 months you start training grappling, you will feel like a completely different person. It's a bit dangerous because you can feel like you can take on the world. And then soon after that, you realize you absolutely can't the moment you roll with someone who's actually good. I think that's an experience pretty much everybody goes through, but it's such a valid one in the sense that it's got such a good chance of getting you hooked onto the sport, and you know makes you want to keep training and keep training. And I think that's a similar experience a lot of people go through with most forms of exercise because it's that rapid development at the start, and you're like, wow, this is so cool. And I'm starting to feel that with gym again already after a long time out of it.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been the MMA Creators Podcast. This is episode number 40. I think it's been a fun one. Yeah, we will see you. This is actually coming out on Monday, so we do apologize for that. But we'll be hopefully Sunday at a normal time next week, and we will see you then.